Every army in the Second World War gave nicknames to the enemy's weapons. The Screaming Mimi, the Devil's Paintbrush, Moaning Minnie. It was much rarer for soldiers to give a mocking name to their own weapon. And it was almost unheard of for that name to be a goodbye. But that is exactly what Red Army anti-tank crews called the little 45mm gun they wheeled into battle against German panzers. Prashchay, Rodina, farewell, Motherland. Because in the Red Army of 1941, being assigned to one of these guns was widely understood to be a short career. To kill a German tank with it, you had to let that tank come close enough to see you, close enough to kill you. The gun said goodbye on your behalf, the joke went, because you wouldn't get the chance to say it yourself. Every army has gallows humor. But here is what the joke leaves out. This obsolete little gun, written off by experts in the first summer of the war, was still in frontline service when the Red Army reached Germany. It destroyed more German armoured vehicles than weapons 10 times its size. And on a grey November day in 1944, on a road southeast of Budapest, a 21-year-old sergeant standing completely alone behind one of them faced a counterattack of 20 German tanks. He did not run. This is the story of the gun that was supposed to be a death sentence, and the men who turned it into something else entirely. The Sorokopiatka, the Little 45, was born from an irony no one at the front knew about. Its ancestor was German. In the years before the war, the Soviet Union license-built a German-designed 37mm anti-tank gun, the same basic weapon the Wehrmacht itself would carry into Russia. Soviet engineers rebored it to 45mm, wanting a shell big enough to burst among infantry, as well as punch armor. Even its origins were shadowed by the era that made it. The gun was finalized by designer Mikhail Loganov after the man who came before him was arrested and executed in the purges. By June 1941, it was everywhere. The standard anti-tank gun of the entire Red Army, positioned in every rifle regiment from the Baltic to the Black Sea, and within weeks of the invasion, its crews discovered the terrible arithmetic of their job. Against German light tanks and armoured carriers, the little gun worked, but the newer Panzer IIIs and IVs were another matter. Their frontal armour shrugged the 45mm shell away. To have a real chance, a crew had to hold fire until the tank closed to a few hundred meters, sometimes less, and then hit it in the side. Think about what that means. 4 or 5 men, protected by nothing but a gun shield the thickness of a coin, crouching motionless, while 30 tons of steel grinds toward them. The first shot reveals their position to every German weapon on the field. If it doesn't kill, the reply will. That is the arithmetic that named the gun, Farewell, Motherland. The experts said the weapon was finished. The crews made jokes about their own funerals. Both were wrong about what came next. Because the little gun refused to die. What the specification sheets missed, the men behind the shield figured out. The Sorokopiatka was small, and small meant invisible. It could be dug in, camouflaged, and hidden in places no larger gun could go. It was light enough for its crew to wheel by hand, shifting positions between shots so the German reply landed on the empty ground. Its gunners stopped dueling armor plate and started hunting weaknesses, tracks, running gear, the thin steel of a flank at ambush range. A tank with a broken track is not a tank anymore. It is a target, and the gun itself evolved. In 1942, Soviet factories gave it a longer barrel and better ammunition, the M42, clawing back penetrating power just as the war reached its most desperate hour. It still couldn't crack the frontal armor of the new German heavies. It didn't need to. There was always a flank, always a track, always a range at which the little gun could kill. So it stayed, through Moscow, through Stalingrad, through Kursk, tens of thousands of them, all the way to the end. A weapon declared obsolete in the first summer of the war, still breaking German attacks in the last one. But the arithmetic never got kinder. Serving these guns remained one of the deadliest jobs the Red Army had to offer. The nickname never stopped being earned. Which brings us to one of the men who earned it. He was 17 years old when the war began, a peasant son from a mountain village in Soviet Azerbaijan. In June 1941, in the very first month of the invasion, he volunteered. His name was Mirza Valiyev. Valiyev's war began the way counterattacked stories usually ended. In his very first battle, records say, his gun commander was killed beside him. The teenage volunteer did not fall back. He took over the gun himself and kept it firing. And by the autumn of 1944, he was 21, a Guards senior sergeant commanding his own 45mm gun, and the war had carried him a very long way from home, all the way to Hungary, where the German army was fighting savagely to hold the road to Budapest. November 6, 1944, the village of Vasad, southeast of the city. Valiyev's gun is deployed with a rifle battalion when the Germans counterattack, infantry, backed by a reported 20 tanks. The little gun opens fire, and the response is everything the nickname ever promised. The German tanks call down artillery and machine gun fire onto Valiyev's position, and one by one, his crew is killed or wounded around him, and then it is just him, one man, one little gun, 20 tanks coming. Alone, Valiyev loads, aims, fires, loads again. A German tank stops, burning, then another, then a third. An armoured personnel carrier is torn open. A truck packed with infantry and ammunition erupts. The Germans, in the words of the official account, decided to annihilate this one gun at any price. They came at him from 3 sides, and it took a direct shell hit, destroying the gun itself, to finally silence it. Valiyev died where he had fought. He was still at his gun, and the counterattack he had absorbed, 20 tanks worth of it, collapsed. The Germans fell back to their starting positions, and the line held. They buried Mirza Valiyev at Vasad on the ground where he fell, a mountain villager from Azerbaijan laid to rest in Hungarian earth 2,000 kilometers from home. On the 24th of March, 1945, with the war in its final weeks, he was posthumously awarded the Order of Lenin, and the highest honor his country could give, Hero of the Soviet Union. In his home village, a monument still stands, credited to him in that final hour. 3 tanks, an armored carrier, a truck, and a counterattack that died in front of one gun. The Sorokapiatka fought on without him, to Budapest, to Vienna, to Berlin. The gun the experts buried in 1941 outlived the army that was supposed to have made it obsolete, so go back, one last time, to the nickname, Farewell, Motherland. The soldiers meant it as a dark joke, the little gun that says goodbye for you because you won't be coming home to say it yourself. For Mirza Valiyev, the joke came true. He never saw his mountains again. But stand where the joke stands, and look at it from the other side. Every man who crouched behind that thin steel shield, watching tanks grow larger in his sights, holding his fire until the range was close enough to kill, every one of them was making the same unspoken promise. You may say farewell to the motherland, but the motherland will not fall. 20 tanks came down the road at Vasad. One 21-year-old kept the promise.